today is going to be a little bit different of a video because I want to talk to you about these 4 standard range zoom lenses that I have in front of me. Fujifilm was kind enough to send me their 16-55 f2.8 Mark I, their 16-55 f2.8 Mark II, and their 16-50 kit lens that they just released, f2.8 to f4.8. And of course I own the Sigma 18-55. And the reason why the video today is going to be a little bit different and I'm showcasing it like this is because I was originally grabbing these and I wanted to go ahead and start working on a full review for these, taking all these images and everything and just kind of just using them as I go along. But whenever I started playing around and taking some test images with these, the thing that kind of blew me away was they're all almost optically the same caliber whenever it comes to sharpness and detail rendering. Again, these are all, unless you pixel peep to 300-400% and start looking in the corners for issues, these are all identical in optical performance, which is mind-blowing to me. And so what I'm going to be doing to review these lenses is I'm going to be taking them all with me at the same time on different hikes, different camping trips, for different assignments, for different portrait shoots that I was setting up. And I'm going to have to use them all against it, like side by side, because just doing 1 to 2 against each other is not going to do them justice, and it's not going to give you a clear representation of how optically amazing all of these are. But if you're in the market for any of these lenses, it doesn't matter which one you buy, they're going to perform, I can't believe I'm saying this, comparably to each other. They are going to perform on a 40 megapixel Fujifilm sensor identically. And I am still trying to wrap my head around that, and the reason why I'm also doing this first take is I want to just make sure that it's not user error, but you'd be happy with all of these. But I'm going to talk to you right now about who I believe these lenses specifically, because optically they're basically the same, what benefits they have to each one, what features each one of these has, the filter sizes, and more importantly, kind of dispel some things that I had seen on the internet about each one of these lenses when it comes to build quality or if it's professional or not. Again, if this 16-55 RWR LM Mark II lens from Fujifilm, this XF lens, is professional because of optical quality, then that means each one of these other 3 has to be professional. I'm still flabbergasted at how well these 2 did, but let's kind of get into this. Now, the lightest lens is going to be the 16-50 f2.8 to f4.8. Does not mean it does not have great build quality. It has an aperture ring on there. That's what the R stands for, and it is free spinning because it is not notated what the aperture is when you're using this, because it has a variable aperture. This is what the clicks sound like. But it's a nice aperture and it's a great build. You have a switch on the side to switch to auto aperture or to be able to control it yourself. The thing about this lens is it has that ring. WR means it's weather resistant. LM means it has linear motors. You're going to get great fast focusing for video and for photo. All of these performed about identical whenever it came to photo work. Whenever it comes to video work, I have actually already some ideas and conversations to have about that. But the big push on this lens is the fact that it's a kit lens, but it's built great because Fujifilm does great with kit lenses. But if you notice, when you're zooming in and out from 16 to 50, it does not protrude from the side of the lens. Nothing pops out. This is internal zooming, which is going to do even better for weather resistance. Make sure you get no dust in there. If you're someone shooting video using gimbals for gimbal work, this is going to be the lens for you to use because, again, you don't have to worry about it being off balance. Someone who's shooting a lot of video, I don't want to say vlogs, but just video, anything on gimbals, things for architecture, real estate, etc., or just any kind of travel stuff, this is going to be the lens that I would 1000% recommend. If you're shooting landscapes, if you're traveling a lot, and you want the best optical quality for the weight and size, this lens, hands down, is going to be it. If I would have known about this lens and how great it was before I got this lens, I might have put my money towards this. But I can't wait to talk about the Sigma because of how damn well this thing performed and some of the things I like about this. But just a smashing job right here whenever it comes to what Fujifilm did. These 2 lenses are going to bring up the most controversial parts of this video. This is the 16-55 f2.8 RWR LM. So, of course, remember from this lens, ring, weather resistant. It has an aperture ring. This one Does though have notations on what your aperture is, because this is not as a constant f2.8 aperture. This is what it sounds like. But this one right here, RWR LM 77 millimeter filter thread, that's pretty big. But it is basically optically identical to this new 16 to 55 f2.8, this Mark II, which is kind of wild. But then you start looking at the changes they made on this lens, and I think I understand why they made these changes. This lens is geared towards the videographer, and Fujifilm is really tailoring a lot of their lenses to videography. It is 200 grams lighter than this Mark I right here. But again, the optical quality is the same. The biggest thing about this is, here's the clicked aperture and the way that it sounds. One moment. So not as deep as a click as the other 16 to 55, but that's because it has the switch here that declicks the aperture. Now this is what it sounds like. And so if you're shooting video, you may think, wow, that's actually awesome that they're doing these things. The bummer for this is it's an electronic controlled aperture ring. So similar to the original Viltrox lenses, the 2314, the 3314 for XF, this lens, it doesn't have immediate feedback whenever you are declicked and you want to change your aperture, because it is electronically controlled. So to me, that puts it in more of the gimmick realm. I get why they're doing it, but it isn't a benefit. Even if you're connecting this to a follow focus, or you have a system to where it can adjust your aperture, someone running a rig can adjust the aperture for you, I just got to say, you are not going to get the same benefit as a manually controlled declicked aperture ring on it. But it is lighter. It is nice to use. There is no optical image stabilization in any of these lenses. And I got to say, I did use this for video for a recent job, and 10 out of 10 would recommend this lens. Autofocus focused so well on the X-T5, it blew me away. And then also this focusing ring, I actually really like it, and pulling focus manually was actually really easy. I much prefer it over the 16 to 55s. This copy they gave me, I much prefer the Mark II over the Mark I when it comes to manual focus ring, because this one doesn't feel as dampened as the Mark II. So there's that. The Mark I is still a great lens. It's optically, you're going to perform almost identically, if not identically, to the Mark II. It's just bigger. That's the only difference. No declicked aperture, of course, but it's just larger. I prefer the feedback on the zoom ring as well as on the aperture ring on this lens. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. The 200 gram difference, in my opinion, is not that big of a difference to really skew me away from using this, because of how optically identical it is to this lens. The thing that would turn me off about this lens is now I have to get a 77 millimeter filter thread, or a 77 millimeter filter instead of just a 72. I have to keep my filters a little smaller. My Cine lenses have 72 millimeter filter threads, and so that's just one thing for me. But they're optically the same, weather resistant, both have linear motors. I couldn't tell you if one focused better than the other, like if this one did better than this one. It's just a matter of light and weight. Finally, the last one we're going to talk about is this Sigma 18 to 55. And this Sigma 18 to 55 is, I got this bad boy right here for $300 in the gray market. You can get this for about $500, $600 in the gray market because it's brand new. This one I have not seen on the gray market. This one you can get for $450 to $500, sorry, $500, $550 on the gray market. And this one you can get anywhere from $250 to $350 is what I've seen. I paid $300 for this. This lens, even though it doesn't have an aperture ring, nothing to twist here, even though it's more of a plastic composite build more than it is a metal build, and this lens, even though it doesn't have the Fujifilm red badge, or it doesn't, internal zoom, is almost optically identical to the same. Besides, the reason I say almost is has a little different color shift and it is flatter, but it's almost optically identical to all of these when it comes to everything else. Image quality, it's on par with all of these. And that's what makes this so crazy to me. It's not the lightest lens that goes to the 16 to 50, but it's not heavier by much. And if I was to talk to someone and they say, hey, I want a zoom lens, but a zoom lens, I don't walk around with a zoom lens, or zoom lenses aren't my everyday, only lens I have, it's not my primary lens, I would point everyone to this lens right here, this 18-55, because again, the optics are amazing. You really can't get much better than this, and I'm being sincere, because these aren't much better, if better at all, to this. There are some people that will want a flatter, less contrasty image from their lenses, specifically people shooting video. I think that's something they would look for. This right here would be the lens for them. And so it really comes down to preference and the money you can save. Again, I've seen these go for $250 on a Fred Miranda. On Facebook Marketplace, you can get these from $300 to $350. On MPB, you can get these from $300 to $50 to $400. That's still cheaper than all of these right here. On Fred Miranda, I've seen one of these go for $400, but the usual price is around $550. I haven't seen this in the used market, and people, the amount they're asking for this one used, $500. I mean, I'd rather wait a couple years until that becomes available. But again, throughout the range, it's the same sharpness. The only downside to this is it's 18-50, and so you're losing 5 millimeters on the long end and 2 millimeters on the wide end compared to these two. And compared to this lens right here, you're losing 2 millimeters on the wide end, but again, you're keeping that f2.8 aperture. Doesn't matter to me much because I usually always stop down, but I understand to a lot of people, f2.8 heads. The wider the aperture, the better, because of course you always shoot landscapes wide open. Everyone knows that. You always want a blurry landscape. The rock in the foreground should be in focus. This is one that I believe that if you are someone who's just doing run and gun video, or you want a cheaper budget travel lens, this is what I would go for, especially if you have a wide angle lens to already pair with it. Me personally, I have a Laowa 9mm f2.8 and a 14mm f2.8 that I use on my IR or my infrared Fujifilm camera. And so I already have options for the wide angle side. And so this 18 millimeters doesn't really affect me. Now, there's also the idea of on the long side that 55 millimeters is about an 82-ish millimeter focal length equivalent, is from what I understand, 83-ish millimeters. This 50 is only about 75. 75 to 83 is not a huge difference in the long end. You're going to notice more a difference in the wide end from 18 to 16 as far as field of view. But the tighter you get, and those numbers are close within about 10 meters, whenever it comes to zoom ranges, it's not that big of a difference between these two. So I'm not hurting and missing for much. This is dust and splash resistant, and so it can't take, a bath like these lenses, but it can do well in a light mist, light rain, and I'm someone who always carries some kind of covering for my camera anyway, because I'm smart. And unless you own an Olympus, your cameras are not weatherproof. They are weather resistant, meaning, oh, you got a little water on them, please wipe them bitches off ASAP. But unless you have an Olympus camera, we'll talk about the OM3 later, you're gonna wanna have some kind of cover for any lens and body whenever you're using them in the rain. Peak Design makes a great one that I would recommend to anybody. I honestly, when I got the lenses, I figured it was going to be the Sigma in last place. It probably wasn't going to resolve the 40 megapixels is what I thought. And then I figured the 16 to 50 was going to be just barely above the Sigma, but I was probably going to like the color and the contrast more on the Sigma. And then I thought that the 16 to 55 would do great, and I'd be able to say, oh, it's a great budget option, but the 16 to 55 Mark II is going to be your end-all be-all. But honestly, this just comes down to a video of preference. Do you want the perfect optical image quality you can get across the board and objectively probably the best out of all four of these? You're going to want to go with either one of these. Do you want a lighter version of this one? Then go with this one right here. The 200 grams is really all you're trading off. That declicked aperture is a gimmick. And then when it comes to these, do you want a amazing budget, lightweight, travel-friendly, do everything lens for you? Yeah. Do you care more about low light than you do, that internal zooming and the aperture ring? Then you're going to go with the Sigma. Do you need an aperture ring? Then you're going to go with the XF 16 to 50. It's that simple. So yeah, there's really nothing else I can say. These lens hoods. All right, here, Fujifilm didn't send me this lens hood for this guy. I don't even know if it comes with one. It looks like it does. But yeah, they're really all great lenses. And again, I was just more shocked at how evenly matched they all were. And I'm just really super excited to use these. I'm going to go on some trips. But with all that being said, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Be on the lookout for the actual end comprehensive review. And I hope this helps you make a buying decision in the meantime. Remember to take it light, but take it, and have a good one.